If you've read Invincible, you know it's not without its share of insane moments. These are the most jaw-dropping scenes from Kirkman's comic. Number 10. Thraxan Genocide. In the early days of Invincible, it was obvious that the Viltrumites were superior to pretty much everyone in all forms of combat. Omni-Man was the strongest hero the planet Earth had ever seen by leaps and bounds, while Mark quickly surpassed heroes with 3 times his experience. It wasn't until the Viltrumites invaded Thraxa that readers understood just how insanely strong they were in comparison to everyday people. In a matter of minutes, 3 Viltrumites nearly brought an entire planet's ecosystem to the brink of extinction with relative ease. Number 9. Meeting the real Mr. Robot. Any Justice League-like superhero team worth its salt reserves a spot for a stoic with a penchant for analyzing data in the heat of the moment. This character is more often than not at least part robot. Invincible is no different, as we were introduced to Robot in the 2nd issue. However, readers soon learned that Robot was more than a walking bucket of bolts and was actually a deformed super genius who couldn't survive outside of a giant test tube, so he created a remote control robot to interact in the outside world. The revelations only got more shocking from there as Robot yearned to live a relatively normal life and started to focus on how to make this a reality. Number 8. Terra's All Grown Up. Time jumps are a staple in comic books. But they rarely ever lead to any permanent damage or long-term effects. In most other cases, if a character does travel in time somehow, they find a way to eventually restore the damage they'd done. After a brief reboot arc where Mark got to undo a lot of his past mistakes, he eventually decided he'd rather live a life full of them with his daughter at his side than risk never seeing her again. Number 7. Monster Girl. You are the father. Monster Girl aka Amanda is able to grow into a giant, green monster at a moment's notice, kind of like Bruce Banner and the Hulk. It really comes in handy in fights. But the downside to her powers was that she rapidly aged in reverse to the point where she once looked like a 12-year-old girl despite nearly being 30. The tragic irony is pretty clear, but there was a second hidden twist on this old-school trope that didn't come into play until later on. Whenever Amanda transforms into Monster Girl, she's biologically a male. This all came directly into play after she and Robot got back from being stuck in an alternate dimension for hundreds of years. Number 6. All hail Emperor Nolan. Nolan left the Earth and his family behind in a very dramatic fashion. However, he'd already become essential to the series, so his return was imminent. But while a return in some fashion was predictable, no one could have predicted it would go down the way it did. Quite a while after he made his true intentions on Earth clear, Nolan went looking for a new home. He ended up finding Thraxa, a planet full of blue, insect-like beings who had a lifespan closer to 3 months by Earth's standards. Naturally, in true Invincible fashion, the being with the longest lifespan is automatically deemed supreme ruler. Number 5. Anissa's Assault. The Viltrumites were always a race rooted in the belief of survival of the fittest. As a result, they took the concept of repopulation so seriously that it was seen as more of an obligation and duty than a privilege. After getting into an argument with Eve, Mark was flying across the country when Anissa suddenly appeared. He continued to deny her advances until Anissa started to fight him. She forced him down to the ground, where their impact created a massive crater, and forced herself on him before coldly leaving him behind. Number 4. Thrag's Return. As Thrag's Viltrumite soldiers got used to life on Earth after war, the same thing happened to them that happened to Nolan. They fell in love with their families, in some cases, all 12 of them, and couldn't sit by and watch them be put in danger. So they turned on him when he tried to keep them from protecting them from threats. To be fair, an ancient prophecy and Nolan being the last living descendant of Viltrum's last ruler also played a role in the power shift, but that was just the last of many straws that broke the camel's back, leading to everyone turning on him and Nolan banishing Thrag to exile. Number 3. Thrag vs. Battle Beast. Throughout the entirety of Invincible, there are only a couple of characters who can take on a Viltrumite in one-on-one combat. Alan the Alien is one, but he had to nearly die before getting that upgrade. On the other side of the spectrum, Battle Beast is a bloodthirsty warrior who lives for nothing other than the victory of battle. He's perhaps the only one who won't hesitate to match the brutal violence of the Viltrumites, and it shows. After allying himself with the coalition of planets, Battle Beast was assigned the task of locating and killing Thrag before he could continue his quest for universal domination. Number 2. Conquest vs. Mark. Conquest clearly earned his name. He's the only Viltrumite you'll see with permanent war scars. His timing was either perfect or horrible, as the first time he fought Mark came immediately after the Invincible Wars. Mark needed something to hit and Conquest was there to kill him. Their fight was bloody, incredible, and heartbreaking. It took place all over the globe and even in space at one point. The most dramatic moment in a fight full of them came when Eve, still recuperating after being hurt in the previous battle, intervened to protect the man she loved. She was clearly in way over her head, as Conquest was merely amused by Eve's attempts and sent his fist clean through her torso. Number 1. Las Vegas Explosion. Once again, Robert Kirkman truly loves irony. Dinosaurus is an anti-hero who looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex that has an obsession with causing the next near-extinction level event to help save humanity from itself. To help the planet go green, he thought he'd make Las Vegas the answer to the world's eco-problems. Based on his own calculations, Sin City wasted far too many resources and was on the verge of going belly up soon anyway, so he planted more than 50 atomic bombs up and down the strip to level the entire city.